Hey guys, this is Comic Uno, and today I'm doing Comic Uno's Best Comics of the Week. So let's get started. We go least favorite to Best Pick of the Week, and this week I had a smaller haul than last week, and this week I have 11 comics. So let's get started. Number 11 for me is Rorschach, issue 1. I'm a huge Watchmen fan. I love Watchmen, and I do like Tom King's writing, but it's always, on and off for me. I enjoyed his first 50 issues of Batman. I really liked his Mr. Miracle, as always, and as a lot of people, I also enjoyed his Vision run. But yeah, could not get into this book at all. I guess there's always the looming question when it comes to a Watchmen book is, do we need it, right? Because we just haven't had that many Watchmen stories after Watchmen, and you want it to feel special, even though I didn't love Doomsday Clock, but like a Doomsday Clock, or even if we go past other media, like the HBO show. So what does this have to say? What is it adding to the narrative? Or are you just capitalizing on the Watchmen name? And that's kind of the fear going into Rorschach. Is it just capitalizing on the name? And for me, it felt that way. I didn't really get much from it. I just could not get into the book, honestly. It really took me a while. It just didn't really quite like the dialogue that much. Artwork was good as always, but it felt similar to the things I haven't liked from Tom King's work. And I guess just continuing with a lot of the same thematics that we've seen from his writing, and I just wanted to see something a bit different. So I don't think I'll be getting issue 2 of Rorschach. I gave it a shot, but not my favorite Watchmen story. As someone who really does like the Watchmen property, it's one of my favorites. So Rorschach issue 1 gets 2 stars, and that is number 11. Moving on to number 10, which is The Amazing Spider-Man issue 50. So this is another milestone issue. Last week we had issue 850, now it's issue 50, and we finally get the reveal of Kindred. Now, I don't want to talk about it too much here, and I know it's most of the issue, but I want to really do a whole separate video on, was it worth the hype, or really not the hype, I would say, was it worth the wait to have this reveal of Kindred? So I'm going to save that topic. That'll be posted tomorrow on the channel, so go check that out. But overall, as you can see, it's kind of lower, just because I feel this book has been at a standstill for a while, and the big thing that was really getting us into, possibly a new wave of what the story is going to, or a new act of the story, was Kindred, and we've been waiting 2 years. It's been 2 years to wait for the reveal, and again, was I disappointed with the reveal of who it was? I'll talk about in that video. But I think the biggest thing is how much story did it develop? It took a really long time to kind of get to the point. And then once you finally get the reveal in the end, you're just like, oh, that's it? It's definitely someone we would have figured for a while. And there are definitely maybe possibly interesting story beats between Norman and Harry, who is the person who is Kindred, so spoiler alert on that. But yeah, so we do know that could kind of be interesting, because in this issue we get to see Green Goblin also is not Green Goblin anymore, so Sin Eater takes away Norman's sins as the Green Goblin. So who is Norman without the Green Goblin? And I think that's probably what I was most interested in with this issue. Now obviously we're not getting the answers here. It's very much, this is what's happening, point A to point B. I also thought it was a little confusing the way the Spider-Man story actually weaved in here, where we get to see almost vampire-like creatures with his spider allies. It was told a little bit out of order, so that was a little confusing. I think probably that issue 50.LR is going to explain that side of the story a little bit better, but wasn't a quite big fan of actually Spider-Man's story here. I kept wanting to go back to Kindred and his creepiness and Norman, but it just wasn't enough for this issue, and I think it's kind of been a telltale of what most of this series has been, is just very sluggish and not a lot of movement. So hopefully it does get better. There are definitely shining moments of this run, but I think I'm getting a little fatigued after 50 issues, and then this was the reveal. I'm like, okay, I guess this is the direction we're going, but hopefully this makes for a unique original Green Goblin story, which is kind of difficult to do because I feel like there's been so many Green Goblin stories told. So we'll see where it goes. Artwork was really good though. I enjoyed how dark Patrick Gleason's art was, and it kind of gave a different vibe to Kindred. So I enjoyed that aspect. But yes, Amazing Spider-Man issue 50 gets 2.5 stars, and that is number 10. Moving on to number 9, and that is Wonder Woman issue 764. Kind of felt like a filler issue, and that's why it's a bit lower here. Not a bad issue. I enjoyed the Miami vibes. I thought that was pretty cool. I just enjoyed seeing them, Maxwell Lord and Wonder Woman trying to chill out as they also go on this adventure and not trust each other. But another slow issue. It kind of takes a while to get to the point of the issue, and again, kind of feels fillerish. There's a lot of ideas we've already seen before. Okay, we get it. Maxwell Lord and Wonder Woman don't trust each other. I did like the little tidbit of Maxwell Lord kind of interacting with his daughter, or at least finding out information about what's up with his daughter, because that was definitely an interesting cliffhanger. But yeah, it felt a little fillerish. We do have a new artist. I do think the art, Steve Pugh's art was definitely stronger than the previous artist, but at times still facial expressions felt a little weird, especially on woman faces, like female faces. Their mouths looked kind of out of place. It didn't feel very spaced out well, the faces, especially of the characters. So wasn't a huge fan of the artwork, but I do think it's much stronger than the previous art. So Wonder Woman issue 764 gets 3 stars. Not a bad story. I think there's some fun interaction between Maxwell Lord and Wonder Woman, but overall kind of a forgettable story. So that is number 9, that was? I'm sorry, actually that wasn't number 9. That was number 8, and I skipped my number 9, so sorry about that. And I was just thinking, should I just do this in editing? It'd probably be too difficult. So we're just going to go into... That was number 8. Number 9, for some reason I forgot to put the sheet on because it's a digital comic. But number 9 is actually Hellions issue 5, which is X of Swords book. And this issue I actually enjoyed a bit more than some of the other X of Swords storylines. I like there was some humor to it, but the reason it's a little lower, just like kind of jumping into a lot of these X of Swords books, I don't read Hellions, and there's a reason why I don't. There's not a lot of characters that I'm personally invested in. So there was interesting story with Sinister. There's some good humor in this issue, but I didn't really quite have that connection because I'm like, oh, which character am I really looking to connect to? And no one really did have that connection for me. But the artwork was very strong. Overall, it's pretty similar, like, let's get the swords type storyline, but I enjoyed the humor and kind of more of the levity of this chapter. And I would say both chapters, well, this chapter more than the other 2 chapters that came out. But yeah, this was the levity of X of Swords, which was cool. So remember, that was actually number 9, and number 8 was Wonder Woman. We already talked about that one, and now going into number 7, which is Commanders in Crisis, issue 1. Love this cover. I thought that was pretty cool. I do enjoy that artist a lot. So going into this one, I was actually pretty excited for this book because I always love seeing diverse characters, especially in the superhero genre. Also, I feel like as of recently, indie comics hasn't really, or at least mainstream indie comics, I should say, haven't really dived into the superhero stuff. There are a lot of times it's a different genre, or there's another genre attached to the superhero story they're trying to tell. So it's kind of cool just to see a straight superhero new book, and I enjoyed that aspect. But it was kind of hard to get into this book. I thought the dialogue was very exposition-y. There wasn't a lot from the characters for me. I feel like we got some small glimpses of them, but not enough to say, ooh, I need this next issue. The thing that did get the hook was by the end of the issue, we actually learned who these characters were, and that they're from these different multiverses, and from their different multiverses, they are the president of, I think of all from the United States. But yeah, all from different timelines. So yeah, they're all from the United States. So that's kind of cool too. So yeah, all the presidents of the United States, and we get to see, like, they're the first president of something. So they're like the first female president, the first gay president, and they're all trying to keep the secret that there's these other multiverses, and there's a mystery involved as well. I wasn't as interested in the mystery. I don't know if they really built up that well, but again, I enjoy the diversity aspect of the book. I like the potential of it, but I don't think there was any character I felt particularly attached to that I feel like you really need in a new superhero book, especially with that first issue. So I don't know if this was an extremely captivating first issue, and that disappointed me. I liked the artwork, though. I thought that was really solid, really sleek, really clean. But I don't know if I'm going to give issue 2 a try. I don't know if I really got enough from this one. So I'm giving that 3 stars, and that is number 7. All right, moving on to number 6, which is Cable issue, what are we up to? Issue 5. So Cable, I've been enjoying this series. It's not one of the few. I just think there's so many X-Men titles, and I guess if you do the percentage, I'm getting like 4 or whatever. But there's like 20 X-Men books. And you realize that as you're reading X of Swords. But going into it, I'm reading Cable, so I was very used to jumping into this one. And, it was cool to see the Summers family. I think, which is interesting to see that the Cable book is the one where you're actually getting the summer drama more than the other books. Like, you would think maybe the X-Men flagship title would jump into all that family drama, but it really has been kind of diving into more C-list X-Men. And then Cable, we're getting to see more of the A-list X-Men. But yeah, this is a very straightforward, Cable gets a sword, right? They go on a mission. It's between Scott, Jean, and their son. They get out of the mission, and then Cable goes in his little circle, be like, "Who's next? Who's next for this sword fight?" So it's somewhat of a forgettable issue, but I at least liked, and the reason why this is higher is because, again, it's the family interaction. I like seeing Jean together. I like seeing Scott. I like seeing Cable. We don't see enough of them. Artwork was really good, and it was one of the more fun missions compared to maybe some of the previous parts. We're already up to part 8, so there's already been a lot of issues of X of Swords, so I enjoyed getting to see that interaction a bit more. I honestly, my mind's kind of blown that we're like almost halfway through X of Swords and we haven't even gotten to like the battle yet. It kind of shows this has been a little bit of a slower event. Not one of my favorite events, but I'm hoping it does pick up a bit. And you do have to read all the parts, which is kind of crazy. 22 parts. But yeah, X of Swords, Cable, issue 5 gets number 7, and that I give 3 stars. Moving on to number 5, which is The Immortal Hulk, issue 38. This issue, pretty point A to point B, but I do think we get some good character interaction, a little bit more depth between Bruce and his father. We get a flashback of them. I believe Bruce's father is some sort of, he's already a monster, but within this hell world, we actually see him as a monster, which was interesting. We get a little bit more of the leader and just kind of how twisted he is and what's going on in Hulk's mind and what's actually going on in the physical world. So yeah, there's like very good small moments. I like seeing a bit more from Rick. I like seeing, again, the more emotional turmoil from Bruce and his father, and then going through that green door, hopefully getting some more plot progression. This wasn't a huge plot progression issue, but it's haunting. There's some interesting character beats for the most part, and the artwork is really what got me to bring this to my top 5, because Joe Bennett's artwork has been really solid throughout the whole entire thing, and it's cool that we actually get an artist for such a long period of time on this book. I feel like that's a rarity in comics these days. So The Immortal Hulk issue 38 gets 3.5 stars, and that is number 5. Moving on to number 4. So number 4 for me is Captain Marvel issue 22. And this is weird because I honestly forgot I read Captain Marvel The End. It feels like it's been such a long time ago. And if you haven't read Captain Marvel The End, this is going to feel very new to you. It's going to be like, oh man, there's this new future world. But a lot of it felt very similar to that End book because they are connected. So I'm like, every single time I was reading it, I'm like, did I read this issue before? Like, what's going on? Did I like pick up the wrong book? And then I realized, no, it's just connecting to the book I kind of forgot I read, which is Captain Marvel The End. But anyways, it's connecting to it. Captain Marvel's in the future. She's kind of having a good, settled life. She's going back to the Air Force. She's hot and heavy with her boyfriend, War Machine. And then, her friends are there. So she was having like a pretty good time until she's brought to the future. And of course, the future is like an apocalypse type world. It looks like nothing's really going right. Carol didn't end up with War Machine. Her friends are really old now. So, I enjoyed what Kelly Thompson does really great is just the character beats. I really like the character interaction. We get to see Jerry and Carol interact with each other. We get to see older Emma Frost. So I enjoyed that aspect more than maybe the world, just because, again, it felt a little bit repetitive for the people that did read the Captain Marvel The End book, but you also understand for people that might be only following this series, they have to, catch you up on what happened in that book. So I'm hoping that issue 2 will have some good movement overall now that they've planted the seeds of this world within the main series. And artwork, as always, is really solid. Like the new character designs for a lot of these characters, and interested to see these future versions of these characters. So Captain Marvel issue 22 gets 4 stars, and that gets 3.5 stars. It is number 4. So, moving on to number 3, which is, luckily I wrote this on a piece of paper, so I remember I read this digitally, but it's New Mutants, issue 13. I haven't been reading New Mutants. I was on and off with the book. I liked it, but I didn't really quite love the plot that was going on. But now it's part of X of Swords. I'm obviously I gotta pick it up. So I'm reading all the X of Swords books, and I was pleasantly surprised by this one. I really think this is probably my favorite next to Marauders, the Storm issue, just because, again, I'm most invested in the Marauders series. But I enjoyed this because it kind of went into more of the personal stakes of the character. We do get to see Cypher get his sword and all that, but what I liked, it's them preparing him to say, oh, you might die. And, the X-Men are thinking with the glass half full, don't worry, we're going to figure this out. No one's going to die. We're going to try not to really make this Hunger Games type match happen. But, they still have to prepare for it. And I love Ileana in general, but I really liked her relationship here with Cypher and her trying to train him, and then even him asking, do you think I'm going to survive? And she kind of says no. Just, stick by my side. I'll try helping you out. Artwork, I also really enjoyed this style overall, kind of this watercolor style going on for the book. And overall, I think it's the most, next to the Storm issue, the most unique issue we've gotten from X of Swords, because it really goes into more of the personal drama compared to the other ones that have been very mission heavy and very point A to point B, get the sword, go into the circle. This one felt a little different to me, which is why I gave it 4 stars. It is my number 3 pick. So moving on to number 2, which is Red Mother, issue 9. So Red Mother, I love this book, as you guys know, and this one really picks up the speed here, where we get to see her friend gets, I think her name is Paris, or maybe that's her other friend, but her friend from work, she gets stabbed by this unknown intruder, and obviously this reminds her of everything that happened with the Red Mother, everything that happened with her boyfriend that died, and she also can't reach her other boyfriend. Now, as an audience member, the Red Mother attacked him. As Daisy, she's like, oh man, I hope he's okay, but also I hope he's not ghosting me. So, yeah, we still don't know what happened to Ian. We don't know what happened to him, but by the end of the issue, she's walking home by herself, and she gets attacked by the same guy that attacked her friend. So, obviously, this is going to remind her Red Mother is disconnected to Red Mother. What is going on? I love the mystery, really enjoy the pacing here, and just love the drama. And I think both the writer and artist have such a good collaboration here. And you really feel the emotions through the small moments, through her waking up from her dream and running to the toilet and, throwing up. There's these little moments that really just show how much she's pushing down and how much she's trying to avoid and how much that is going to creep up and make her not avoid it. And I still believe the biggest theme of this book is that you can't ignore your feelings or else it's gonna come back at you. And that's exactly what's going on in this issue. Artwork is so good for this book. Overall, I just think this book is such an underrated series, and I hope more people read it. I really enjoyed this issue, giving that one 4 stars, and that is number 2. Moving on to number 1. My number 1 pick this week, another slam dunk for this series and this creative team. Daniele and Tom Taylor and Daniele, 7 Secrets, issue 3. It just kind of keeps surprising me, because you got that first issue, which is from the point of view of the parents, pretty much. Then you have the death of his dad in the second issue. Now we get to see the aftermath of that, and some more really, really strong plot progression where we get to see Casper becomes his mother's partner, becomes the holder of this case after, obviously, trials that he has to go through, and really proves himself that he can be this 15-year-old kid that holds the case. Now, we also know that he dies, so he probably, wasn't the best pick, but we'll see how that ends up going. But yeah, it was a good issue because it shows the world building. It shows that the prime ministers, the queens, everything, every royal person or a political person kind of knows about these 7 secrets and are involved in this kind of organization in some way and know, I think the father's name is Singrid, knows that the dad died. And what I really like is kind of this emotional storyline the most, where we get to see Casper even question that his dad loved him. He's like, I don't even know. Like in the funeral scene, he's like, I don't know what to say because I don't even know if he loved me. And then the mom kind of proves like, no, he did love you. Look at all these things. We just couldn't be with you. And there's this like really, really good moment where she tells her secret and say, no, I love you more than anything. And then, you know, she kisses him on the forehead. And now they're teaming up together. Like the moment where they always had to be separated. How do they keep themselves emotionally distant? Do they keep themselves emotionally distant as teammates? So I think that was super interesting. How's their relationship going to change? And also the villain kind of creeping up in the background as well. Artwork is really good, really well balanced here. Like I was saying, there's some really good emotions in this issue, but good action because you also have the trials going on. Just a really well balanced issue, and every issue just keeps surprising me with this one. So really enjoying 7 Secrets. Go pick it up. That's my pick of the week. I give it 4.5 stars. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. This is Comic Uno. Definitely follow me on Twitter and Facebook. Go check out my comics like Father Like Daughter and They Call Her a Dancer. And every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time is Comic Book Weekly, where we discuss our favorite comics and comic book news. Thanks, guys.